Welcome to Cafdil Lessons.
Hello, my wonderful viewers. You are welcome to another edition of Cafdil Science Lessons, GES NACA curriculum released in 2019. And we are still on Strand 1, Diversity of Matter, Sub-Strand 1, Living and Non-Living Things. So at the end of this series of lessons for this strand, you'll be able to classify animals into insects, birds, mammals, reptiles and amphibians. But today the topic is still on insects, but we are going to look at useful insects. We learned about some examples of insects in our last lessons, and some of them are useful, some of them are also bad. So in this lesson we are going to look at useful insects. So this is lesson 2 for basic 4 on useful insect. Now let's look at our performance indicators. That is at the end of the lesson, the change I want to see in you. At the end of the lesson, you'll be able to state what useful insects are. And then 2, mention 4 examples of useful insects and how useful the 4 insects you mentions are to humans. So you'll be able to state what useful insects are and then mention 4 examples of useful insects and how useful these 4 insects are to humans. That is us. Good. Now, let's begin the lesson. What are useful insects? In our previous lessons, as we recapped, we talked about insects as the smallest of all animals with 6 legs. We looked at some examples of insects as the bee, the butterfly, the mosquito, the cockroach, the beetle, the bedbug, the ladybird, and the rest. Some of these insects we mentioned in our first lesson, some of them are very useful to human life. And that is what we are going to look at today. So what are useful insects? When we say useful insects, what are useful insects? Useful insects are insects that are helpful to life on Earth. Useful insects are insects that are helpful to life on Earth. When you were in basic 1, you learned about living and non-living things, even in the preschool. And you see that when you talk about living things, you talk about human beings, you talk about plants, you talk about animals. So when we talk about useful insects being helpful to life on Earth, it is not only humans that benefit from these useful insects. Sometimes plants also benefit from these useful insects. Sometimes animals also benefit from these useful insects. So when we talk about useful insects, they are insects that are helpful to life. Anything that has life in them, these useful insects are also helpful to them. Now let's look at some examples of useful insects. And the first one is bees and butterflies. Bees and butterflies. So what do bees and butterflies do for us that we group them as useful insects? Some insects like bees and butterflies help in the pollination of flowers. They help pollinate flowers. Somebody may ask, what is pollination? When we talk about pollination, it is the movement of seeds, that is pollen grains, from the male part, that is the anther of a flower, to the eggs, that is the ovules of the female part, that is the stigma. So pollination is the movement of seeds from the male part of the flower to the female parts of the flower. And when that happens, what benefit do we get from it? So this is the male part of the flower. That's the anther you see on your screen, the male part. So if you look at this red hibiscus flower here, what you have at the top there is the yellow top with that string, is the white string, is the anther. That is the male part. And the female part, the male part contains seeds. So you see the seeds. These are the seeds. You see the seeds falling. These are the seeds inside the male part. And this is the female part. And the female part too, you can see some eggs in the female part. So when the seeds from the anther travels to meet the eggs of the female part, that is what we call pollination. That is what we call pollination. And we said that these insects like bees and butterfly help in the pollination of flowers. So how do they do it? Now let's look at how pollination occurs. This is how pollination occurs. So you see the pollen grains produce more plants. So if you look at this orange on your screen, you can see the fruits as well as the seeds inside. You can plant these seeds to get more of the oranges. So note that pollination, these are the two basic things we get from pollination. Production of fruits we can eat, as well as seeds that we will use to produce more plants. It moves. You see that, and the pollen grains are sticky. So inside the mauve flower, you see that some of the pollen grains have stuck on the body of the bee, and when they fly to the stigma of the same flower, some of the seeds will travel, meet the eggs, and we get fruits like pawpaw, as you see. The same thing applies to the butterfly. They also go and then suck the nectar, and as they come into contact with the pollen grains, since they are sticky, they carry some, and then when they also step on the stigma, some of the seeds are released to the eggs, and then that is the ovules. They all grow together and we get fruits. Kate, if not that these useful insects pollinate these flowers for us, it will be a very difficult job for us. Can you take your bath in the morning, travel from flower to flower, and then pollinate this yourself? No, it will be a tedious job. So these insects that sometimes you even play and kill them, they are very useful. They help with the pollination of flowers, and the pollination leads to the production of fruits that we enjoy all the time. And we use some of these fruits to also make fruit juice. And you like fruit juice a lot. This Tampico and the fruit juice, the Calipo and the rest, they are all from fruits. And before we can get these fruits to produce these drinks, pollination must take place first. And this pollination is done by these useful insects. So when you see the butterfly and the bees these days, respect them, because they also help with the existence of life on earth. Good. Now, let's go to the bee again. The bee gives us honey. The bee gives us honey. I hope you have all eaten honey before. When we were young, we used to eat honey, and up to now, we still eat them. So the bee is an insect that gives us that sweet honey. Let's look at how the honeys are made. The bees visit the flowers just to suck the nectar. So you see a bee here sucking the nectar. And the nectar, you see the tongue of the bee. Insect, they have tongue. You see the tongue licking the nectar. And when they lick, the nectar is made up of water and sugar. That is what they also suck. That's the contents of the nectar, water and sugar. It looks colorless like the water we take. That is the example of the nectar you see in a flower. So that is what the bees go to feed on. So they feed on the nectar. So after feeding on the nectar travels to their honey stomach. They have a stomach called a honey stomach. It contains some enzymes. You see, when you study the bee colony, not all of them, some are workers, some are servants, not all of them are allowed to go out to enjoy the nectar. So when they come back to their hive, they share the nectar with their colleagues that were not able to go out to feed on the nectar. So that is what they are doing. They are sharing the nectar. So this bee is releasing some of the nectar to the friend that couldn't go out. And this process goes on until most of them have a taste of the nectar. So when the nectar is being swallowed by the bee, it goes into their honey stomach to meet that enzyme. The nectar coming into contact with that enzymes help us to form the honey. So without the nectar, bees cannot make honey. Without the nectar, bees cannot make honey. So as they exchange the nectar, it goes to their stomach, meet the enzyme, mixes up with the enzyme, and then the honey is produced. So when the honey is produced, they put the honey, they vomit the honey into their honeycomb. They vomit the honey into their honeycomb. You see, the bees make the honey to feed their young ones. Not for us, but we also benefit from the honey. But the main purpose of the bee producing the honey is to feed the young ones. When we are born, we feed on breast milk. So when their young ones are also hatched, they also feed on the honey produced by their parents. So that is how the honey is made. So after getting the honey, let's look at some of the things the honey can be used for. The honey can be used to make biscuits. It can be used to make toffee. It can be used to make drinks. It can be used to make drinks. These are all products that we get from the honey that bees produce. We can also eat the honey with bread. Honey is also used in making medicine. It can also be used to make lotion, that is body cream. We can also use the honey as sugar. Some people use honey as sugar. You can also use the honey to make soap, and then you also to make hair pomade to apply it in our hair. So these are some of the examples of products that we can get from the honey produced by bees. Still on the bee gives us wax. So you see that the bee is very useful to us. The bee gives us wax. They pollinate flowers, they give us honey, and they also give us wax. What is wax? Wax, we get wax from the honeycomb. You see, if you look down here, we have the honeycomb. That is where the bee stores the honey. So bee stores the honey in the honeycomb. And when the honeycomb, the honey is extracted from the honeycomb, what is left is what we use to make the wax. So honeycomb is a natural product made by honeybees to store honey. So farmers that rear the bees, when they collect the honey from the honeycomb, they can also use the honeycomb to produce wax. Let's look at how wax is produced from honeycomb. So this is the honeycomb. All the honey is extracted from this honeycomb. So we tie the honeycomb in a gauze or a cloth. We tie them. So these are pieces of the honeycomb. So we tie them in a gauze or a cloth, and then we put it in boiling water. Why do we tie it in a cloth? So that the cloth will help prevent the dirty particles in the honeycomb. So when you boil it in water, it will melt. The honeycomb will melt, and the dirty particles will be trapped in the cloth. So when you get the liquid, you pour it in a container, and when it cools down, we get the wax. So as the liquid cools, it changes to wax. So that is how wax is made. You can melt the wax again, sieve it for it to be free from every particle that is not needed. So the wax can be melted again, sieved again, so that we can get a clean wax. And we get this wax from honeycomb. And Kate, what do we use this wax for? This wax being produced here is also very useful to us. Let's look at some of the use. So this is the wax. When it cools, we get this solid called wax. Let's look at some of the uses. Number one, we use the wax to make candles. We all use candles, especially at churches, and sometimes when there's power cuts, we also rely on candles. And we get these candles from bee wax. We also get crayons. When you were in preschool, you were using crayons. We use bee wax to produce crayons. We also use bee wax to produce chewing gum. Some of the chewing gum are from bee wax. Some of the chewing gum that we chew or enjoy are from bee wax. We also get furniture polish from bee wax. We also use it in the manufacture of textiles. So when you use bee wax in the manufacture of textiles, it does not fade easily. The shoe polish that you see shoe wax polish. So we use the bee wax to also make shoe polish. We also use it for deodorant. So you see bee wax deodorant, you apply it in your armpit after taking your bath. We also use the bee wax to make soap. We also use the bee wax to make ointment for babies. So you see the things we can get from bee wax. So the bee is a very useful insect in our environment. Good. Now let's move from the bee to other useful insects. We have the locust, the cricket, and the grasshopper. These insects also serve as food for some people because they are high in protein and iron. When we see grasshoppers around, we just chase them, catch them, and kill them. But they are source of meat for some people around the world. And as you see, these ladies are preparing some food using these insects, the cricket, the locust, and the grasshopper. We don't eat them, but if you go to certain parts of the world, it serves as food. So they will fry it. I'm told it's very nice. Maybe I'll try it one day. It's very nice. They say it's like lobsters when you fry it. It's very nice. So if you have a garden around and you have some, you can try. They are very high in protein and iron. They are very high in protein and iron. So you fry and then you can enjoy them with our kinky and the gari and the rest. Everything that God created, when He finished, He said they are all good. One man's meat is another man's poison. You like chicken, somebody like grasshopper. That doesn't make the person different from you. So you see, they are finished frying and they are going to enjoy it. I wish I were there. I can also try it and see. Look at how they are enjoying. And look at eating grasshopper. Look at how beautiful they have grown. So you can try. You can also try it. So they are enjoying. So locusts, crickets, grasshoppers, they serve as food for some people because they are high in protein. Even in Christianity, as Christians, in the Bible, Matthew 3:4, John the Baptist also enjoyed locusts and honey while in the wilderness. Honey, we get honey from bees, and the bee is an insect. Locust is also an insect. So even John the Baptist, way back, also enjoyed products from insects or some of the insects itself. So some use it as source of food. Locusts are also used to mix animal feed because of high protein they contain. So some farmers also mix locusts with their animal feed so that the animals can grow fat for them. So locusts are used to mix animal feed because of the high protein they contain. Another useful insect is the praying mantis. And the praying mantis eats other insects like locusts that destroy farm crops. Locusts destroy farm crops. They are like fire. You can use it to cook and it can burn you as well. They are harmful and useful at the same time. So as useful insects, locusts can be used as food because they are high in protein and iron. But when it comes to farms, they destroy farm crops. And these praying mantis feed on the locusts that destroy the farm crop. Let's look at some of the dangerous things locusts do to our farm crops. You see how they destroy the leaves of the plants. And you see that when you take the plants, parts of the plants, the leaves, the stem, the roots, the flower, the leaves serves as the mother of the plant that prepares food for the plant. So if the leaves are destroyed, it means the plants cannot get food to eat and the plants will die. So the locusts feed on the leaves of the plant and that kills the plant. And they come in their numbers. As you can see, they attack in their numbers. Look at how they are chewing the leaves. So they destroy the leaves of plants. See, even when you read the Bible, when Moses wanted to take the Israelites, God sent some of these locusts to destroy the farm crops of the Egyptians. You see, they destroy the leaves of plants. So these praying mantis feed on the locusts, and that helps keep our plants. They feed on the locusts. They feed on the locusts. So here you see a praying mantis eating a locust. Insect eating an insect. Insect eating an insect. Obia one master. Insect eating an insect. So they put them, they eat them. So locusts fear the praying mantis because they do justice to them. You see, it has squandered the head. So praying mantis eats other insects like locusts that destroy farm crops. Let's look at the dragonfly. The dragonflies also eat harmful insects like mosquitoes that are harmful to us. Mosquitoes are very harmful to us, and dragonfly eats them. So when you see dragonflies around, don't kill them. They also have a role to play in the environment. They eat harmful insects like mosquitoes. When you are being bitten by a mosquito and you fall sick, you get malaria, you cannot go to school for almost a week and you lose lessons. So help protect the dragonflies because they eat some of these harmful insects that can make us sick. You also have the ladybird. The ladybird is also a useful insect and they are great for gardens. Why? Because they eat insects like aphids that also destroys plants. Aphids are also like locusts, but what they do is that they will suck the green pigments of the leaf. The green pigment is the chlorophyll. They will suck it so that the leaf will become pale and the plants will die. So that is what aphids do. They suck the green pigments in the leaves and it will turn the leaf yellow and the plants will die. So these ladybirds also feed on these aphids that destroy plants. Yes. Good. Kids, we have come to the end of the lesson, and today we looked at useful insects. We looked at the butterfly as a pollinator of flowers. The bees also, they pollinate flowers. They give us honey. They give us wax. And we can use the honey and the wax for variety of products. We also looked at the praying mantis that feed on locusts that destroy our farm crops. We also looked at the locusts as a source of food because they are rich in protein and iron. We also looked at the ladybird that feed on aphids that destroy farm crops, as well as the dragonfly that feed on dangerous insects like the mosquito. So these are examples of the useful insects we looked at in this lesson. Before we leave, let's test ourselves as usual. 1. An example of a useful insect is there. An example of a useful insect is there. So we have the mosquito, ants, and bee. Example of useful insect. Good. The answer is bee. The bee pollinates flowers, give us honey, and give us wax. 2. Which of the following insects help with the pollination of flowers? You have butterfly, you have locust, you have praying mantis. Good. The answer is butterfly. Butterfly pollinates flowers, and pollination leads to the production of fruits and then seeds to produce more fruits. 3. Which of the following insects gets us fruits to eat? You have locust, bee, and praying mantis. Great. It's the bee. The bee pollinates flowers for us to get fruits. 4. Which insect produces honey for humans to eat? You have butterfly, you have bee, you have locust. Good. The answer is bee. 5. Which of the following insect is eaten by humans? Which of the following insect is eaten by humans? You have ants, locusts, and bee. Good. The answer is locusts because they are high in protein and iron. Well done, kids. Well done. Before we leave, let's put this homework down. 1. What are useful insects? What are useful insects? 2. State 3 examples of useful insects. 3 examples. And then 3. Mention how useful the 3 examples you stated are to humans. So if you state 3 examples of insects, then the next question, you state how useful they are to us. Good. As I explained to you in the first lesson, you can scan this QR code on your screen with your phone. When you check your phone, you have QR code scanner. If you don't have it, you can go to the Play Store if you are using Android to download QR code scanner, or App Store to download the QR code scanner. Scan this code, and then when you scan it, a link will come below the code you scanned. Tap on it and it will lead you to exercise on useful insects. You start by typing your name, your school, and then your town or your location where you are, and then you start answering. When you finish, you just click on submit. You will see your results there, and then I will also get your result here at Cafdil. So you can scan if you have a phone, a tablet, or a phablet, or if you don't have access to that, you can also write this homework and then you try your hands on. I'll give you some few minutes to scan or write the homework down. Well done. I hope you were all able to put the assignment down or scan the QR code to try your hands on the exercise. Kate, in this lesson, we looked at useful insects, and I believe you have learned a lot about insects. It is not only knowing insects and their examples that makes you know more, but knowing the usefulness of them also adds more to your knowledge. I believe you enjoyed the lesson on insects, and until I come your way again with another interesting lesson, this is your teacher, Ernest Atto Bente. Bye-bye.